Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm Kirti Sophia Panishan, and in today's session we'll be continuing the poem Tulips by Sylvia Plath, and this is part 2. Tulips. The tulips are too excitable. It is winter here. Look how white everything is. How quiet, how snowed in. I am learning peacefulness, lying by myself quietly. As the light lies on these white walls, this bed, these hands, I am nobody. I have nothing to do with explosions. I have given my name and my day clothes up to the nurses, and my history to the anesthetists, and my body to surgeons. So this is the first stanza of the poem. Now we'll have a line by line explanation of the poem. The tulips are too excitable. It is winter here. We could see that Plath splits this opening line into two sharp, clear, simple statements. So let's see what all they are one at a time. So first, she tells us that the tulips are too excitable. If there's a word that jumps out there, it's probably excitable, isn't it? That word. It's kind of a surprising choice if you really think about it. When you say that something is excitable, it means that it gets excited easily. But tulips are just flowers, so how exactly are flowers supposed to get excited? Isn't it? That's a thought that comes to our mind. But that's just it. That the beauty of this line, it actually makes you imagine tulips so bright and vivid that they look excited and cool to the person who's looking at it. Okay, now on to the second half of the line. In contrast to those worked up tulips, she tells us it is winter here. So we all know that winter is a season in which everything is cold, empty, white, and it's kind of not at all a happening time of the year, isn't it? So it's quite, the opposite of what is being explained in the first half of the line. That is, it's not at all excitable. But here, the poet has brought these two into a single line. One is that the tulips are excitable, but it's the winter season at that time. Moving on to the second line. Look how white everything is. How quiet, how snowed in. So here the speaker is actually talking to us. He's inviting, or she's inviting us to see just what winter looks like to her. It's almost as if we are sitting right next to her and staring out the window. And just what do we see out that window? A completely silent world covered in white snow. We certainly won't find any tulips out there, isn't it? So it's not at all the season of tulips to grow. Line 3. I am learning peacefulness, lying by myself quietly. Here, for the very first time, the speaker tells us about herself. Apparently, we could see that she is lying somewhere and we are not sure where she is lying. But she is very quiet and she's all alone. There's also a neat word choice here that's worth noting. That is, she's saying that she is learning to be peaceful. The word choice tells us even more about our speaker because it hints that she isn't a naturally peaceful person. Maybe it's even a bit of a struggle for her to be a peaceful person. And maybe she's more like those tulips than she is like, say, that the window scene out of the window. And we could see that she's like the tulips on the inside, but she's trying hard to stay cool, calm, and collected, just like the winter that is happening outside her window. Moving on to the fourth line. As the light lies on these white walls, this bed, these hands. Okay, now we are really setting the mood. and we could see that it's not a really good mood, isn't it? Everything seems just a little too bright. She uses the word white for the second time in 2 lines. We have just read 2 extra lines. That is, only 4 lines has passed, and the word white is being repeatedly used. We are practically squinting in the glare of the page. Plus, we could notice how the light doesn't shine. It lies on the walls and bed and hands. Plath is lobbing another interesting word choice our way. That is, this word reminds us of the way the speaker is lying in the bed, but it also makes the light seem strangely heavy. The light is kind of falling, and it's extremely heavy on the wall and on the person who's lying over there. And there's one more thing that we should notice, that she doesn't talk about my hands, just these hands, as if it didn't belong to her. And she is telling that the hands at the end of her arms are someone else's entirely. It's very strange, isn't it? When it's our hands, we would say that it's my hand. But here she is telling that these hands, she is referring it to as somebody else's. Line 5. I am nobody. I have nothing to do with explosions. Now we're really getting bleak, isn't it? The speaker picks up on the hint she gave us in the last line, but now she disappears from the world completely. She's not anybody at all. In this white, wintry room, her identity has been totally erased. The rest of the line is a bit more mysterious. What does it mean that she has nothing to do with explosions? Naturally, this sneaky poem doesn't tell us directly, but we will have hazards, and we would actually guess what she means. We think it might link back to that image of the tulips, which are so bright and excitable, and that tulips kind of seems to be exploding. That might be the image, but she is not really clear about what she's meaning over here. I have given my name and my day clothes up to the nurses. More information for us readers, that as a speaker, we find out is in the hospital, because she tells us that she has given her clothes to the nurses. If you ever had to put yourself a hospital gown, you know that that's a standard procedure. When we go to the hospital, we have to change our clothes into the hospital clothes. But you also know it can make you feel kind of silly and very, very exposed, isn't it? That's the design of the hospital cloth. For our speaker, though, it's more than that. She feels like she gave up her name with her clothes, almost as if she has given up her identity. Okay, that is how the person in the poem is feeling. And my history to the anesthetist and my body to surgeons. The speaker is now telling that she is emptying out everything that makes her a person. She's already lost her name. Now she's telling us that she gave her history to the anesthetist. The anesthetist is a person who puts you into sleep while you're having an operation or so. Of course, she could be referring to just her medical history, but she leaves out the word medical. It seems to go deeper than that. And apparently, she is recovering from a surgery, because she has given up her body to the surgeon too. So, that is what we are seeing over here in this line. And let's face it, that this is a pretty bleak and scary way to end the first stanza of the poem, isn't it? It's kind of abrupt, and we have a creepy feeling within ourselves. So that's how the first stanza comes to an end. Stanza 2. They have propped my head between the pillow and the sheet cuff. So this line is pretty straightforward. The hospital staff has simply propped the speaker's head between her pillow and the edge of the sheet. And it's kind of basic, but it's also a great image that picks up on everything she's already said about what she's given up. That is her identity. You can just picture it. She doesn't even have a body in this line. She's just a head poking out of a sheet. So she's covered with sheet and her head is in between the pillow, and we could just see her head. That's all. Like an eye between two white lids that will not shut. Here we could see that the poet imagines her head being like an eyeball stuck between two always open lids. It's really creepy, isn't it? If we are unable to close our eyelids, our eyes will be exposed always, and that is how the poet is feeling at the moment. We could also see the word white is here in this line again, and here, between the snow and the walls and the sheets, the speaker is totally trapped in a world of endless white. Everything around her is white. That is why the word white is being repeated a lot in these several stanzas. Stupid pupil, it has to take everything in. The speaker calls her head a stupid pupil, which is pretty great play on the word pupil, because a pupil is of course the center of an eye, and she has just described her head as an eye in the previous line. So we have already seen that, but it also refers to a student, and in this case one that's perhaps not too bright. Plus, don't forget, she's totally stuck in this hospital bed. She cannot move or talk, so she has to just lie there and take everything in. That is, whatever is happening around her, she has to accept it, and she's unable to move or say or do anything of her own. And one more thing is that, what do you think about the tone of this line? It seems kind of resentful, isn't it? Like she's frustrated with her current state of affairs, and she wants to be liberated from that. The nurses pass and pass, they are no trouble. They pass the way gulls pass inland in their white caps. These nurses don't bother her, they just move endlessly by. But if the nurses don't bug her, something else must, because this woman is definitely not in a good mood. At a basic level, the simile in the second line tells us that the movement of the nurses reminds her of the way gulls fly in from the ocean. But something a tad more interesting happens at the end of the line. That is, check out the last phrase, in their white caps. What do you think that refers to? Maybe it just means that the nurses are wearing white caps, but it also makes us think of the ocean waves, the white caps that the seagulls have left behind on their way ashore. That's so cool, isn't it? We love the way Plath can send us spinning off in all directions with a few little words. Her imaginations are of so many levels and angles. And as always, in these lines also we get the word white again. It's everywhere. In almost all the stanzas we get the word white. And we as a reader has no escape from the word white, isn't it? So we'll stop over here and continue in the next class. I hope today's session was fruitful for you all. See you again in the next class. Bye-bye.